So I was asked the question, how did Jacqueline win 2 consecutive regionals and finish top 20 in the Open during the 2019 season? And it's a great question, and it's probably not just specifically to Jacqueline, but in general, how do you become better as an athlete and start reaching the top level? Now, for CrossFit, it's a sport that's constantly varied, and that is in essence where the beauty of the sport is, but also the trickiness of programming and developing an athlete as such, because we need different components. So we need to have great endurance, we need to be strong, we need to be technically efficient and able to adapt, and we also need to combine all of those things at once. So what we typically see, and from a quintessential strength and conditioning standpoint, is that it's very hard to build conditioning and strength at the same time because physiologically they're different. Whereas with CrossFit, what we've seen, it can be done, obviously not to the large extremes of fighting for a sub 2-hour marathon and then being able to clean and jerk over 200 kilos. Those are kind of the ends of those conditioning spectrum and strength spectrum. However, what we know we can do is improve someone's strength whilst at the same time improving someone's conditioning. That then is combined with the athlete being able to adapt technically. Obviously, we have a lot of gymnastics, so the more efficient they can move, the quicker they can be. So really what we need to do is start at the foundation. We need to make sure that there is a conditioning base, a strength base, and a technique base, and then we start layering on these foundations. One of the key principles of our program is that we don't want to see big jumps in one area. We want to see consecutive jumps, albeit smaller, in all of the areas combined. So we don't just want an athlete getting really strong in the off season but neglecting their conditioning, because what we tend to see is that when their conditioning starts getting better, their strength then takes big steps down at the same moment. Whereas if we make these smaller steps, we actually take the whole level of the athlete up. There was a big phase in kind of the CrossFit sporting world, like the stronger you are, the better opportunities you have. But it's not necessarily true and doesn't hold like that. You can't just be strong. You might be able to win events, but if you can't have the capacity to back that up, then you're not going to be able to do much further. So that's in essence what we do. We want to start completing a full athlete. So they are completing conditioning, completing strength, and complete with technique. And then we build from there. So once we've identified with the athlete that they have the basic conditioning skills needed, the basic strength and the basic technique, it's then how do we start developing them? We like to base our testing off competitions. That's typically what we've done. CrossFit was developing quite a structured season, so you'd have the Open, the regionals, and then the games. The last 2 years have obviously been a lot of changes in the competitive season, but because again of this constantly varied nature, we can't just test someone's 5K and actually expect that they've got better in CrossFit. They'll have got better at, say, a 5K row, but their CrossFit compared to the other athletes may not have improved. So that's really where we want to start seeing the development, is that the athlete performs at competition. That is the best tester we have. Obviously at the moment it's all a bit confused with the COVID timing. However, online qualifiers can give us some indication of where the athletes are. And so then what we will start doing is our program will reflect those principles. So our programming is constantly varied. That shouldn't be confused for random, because we do follow certain principles. Like one thing that we want to make sure is that, if a program was random, you might end up having like back squatting twice a day, or whatever it may be, running then running. However, that's different, constantly varied, and I think that's something that is tricky to understand when you first come in. We want a low interference, so if we have back squatted on one day, we want to make sure that the afternoon is that we don't have interference with our back squatting, so we can get the most out of both sessions. And that's one of the principles that needs experience and can be quite hard to apply as we go through. So when we're trying to build and develop an athlete like Jacqueline, she's very much an all-round athlete, meaning she doesn't have big holes. Like some athletes may just struggle with their strength numbers, and it's very obvious where they need to work. With Jacqueline, we actually just need to get a bit stronger, a bit better conditioned, and a bit more efficient with gymnastics. And so for her, the programming does stay constantly varied, and the focuses need to be evenly distributed throughout. Whereas say with another athlete who may be lacking in a certain movement, let's say gymnastic pressing strength, then what we will actually do is it's important, like we said at the start, that we don't just focus on this one area. We're constantly developing all the areas that are associated with good programming. However, what we will do is put a focus on that. So even though, say, Jacqueline's person may be following the same program, they may have different focuses. So, you know, there might be extra work in the warm-up being put on for the strict gymnastic work, pressing gymnastic work, or in the workout, you know, for example, they may not be going in the lifting to their 100% all-time 1RM maxes. They'll be conserving a little bit, so when they get to the gymnastics, that's where they can try to reach the intensity and push. So actually within a similar programming, we can start to change the focuses for the athlete and get what they need out of the generalized idea. You know, to explain in a 10-minute video how to develop an athlete is tricky. It takes years, and especially in a sport like CrossFit where it is constantly varied and you never know what the athlete is going to be doing. It's quite typical to rock up to a competition, not know any of the events, and therefore peaking for that competition. More, you know, it's not specifically about making them better at one particular aspect, peaking their strength. Actually, they need to go in prepared for whatever they may face as they go in. With the program, we spend a lot of time working, developing our athletes, knowing where their specific weaknesses may be, so we can tweak the programming to their needs. And that relationship with the coaches that we have is really one of the greatest assets that the athletes can have, coupled that with our experience. So I know it was kind of trying to get a lot of information in this 10 minutes, but I do hope it helped. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us at the program, info@theprogram.com, and we will be there to get back to you.